Hello everyone, this is Calvin Russell, CEO and founder of 850 Club Credit. Let's go ahead and get this video started. Today we're going to talk about how to remove yourself as a cosigner, and that can be on an auto loan, a mortgage loan, a personal loan, anything that you may have signed for, right? We always talk about, obviously how easy it is to become a cosigner, the do's and don'ts, the pros and cons. But what happens if you've already made that decision? I won't necessarily say it was a mistake, but if you have the intention on removing yourself, how do you go about doing so? So let's go into it. So number one, you have to ask yourself, what's the relationship between you and the person that you actually co-signed for? This is going to play a major role because if you have a close relationship to them, this process is going to be a lot easier to lay down. OK, but it also depends, obviously, on the dynamic of the relationship as well, too. Just because you co-sign for a person and, they're your family member doesn't mean that you guys are still on good terms. So this would be a good time to get on good terms, and once you guys see the rest of the process. However, if it's a relationship that's no longer there, that's tarnished or whatever the case may be, obviously it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you can at least still try. OK, and by try, I mean actually going into the full process. Now, in order to remove yourself, the person that you co-sign for will more than likely have to make a decision. OK, they're either going to have to trade in or change or refinance that entire process, the entire loan itself. OK, let's start with an auto loan. So let's say, for example, you co-sign for someone on an auto loan and you want to remove yourself. You can't, unfortunately, call the bank and just say, hey, I would like to remove myself from the loan. The buyer, the person that you co-sign for, they would either have to trade the vehicle in. OK, and then when they trade the vehicle in, usually that needs a signature from you. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But in most cases, it actually does. But sometimes lenders or banks or dealerships will find a way around getting that signature. But they should need that to trade the vehicle in. Now, here's the thing. The person that you co-sign for must qualify for the next vehicle by themselves. OK, so that is an option, trading in the vehicle. Number two is just selling the car. You can easily sell a car to someone. Of course, now the thing is that if you're still paying a car note, obviously, you don't have the title. And so now in order for them to get the title, they have to pay off what you owe. And that's what we call a payoff. Typically, banks usually give what they call a 10-day payoff, which means that they're going to give you a number, and that number is good between now and the next 10 days. After 10 days, you could either obviously call and get another payoff or just do the math on your own, because the reason why they give you a 10-day payoff is because it comes with what they call a per diem. That's DIEM. And that per diem is a daily interest. OK, and so that's already calculated between now and the next 10 days. So either way, so let's say, for example, your payoff is $10,000. So you're going to need to sell that car for $10,000 in order to get that title. Obviously, you can sell it for more if it's worth more. And then, of course, if you sell for less, you have to make up the difference on your own in order to get the title to truly sell the vehicle. OK, or you can go into option 3, which is refinancing that vehicle. And of course, this is where, of course, this is assuming that the person that you co-signed for wants to keep the vehicle and they want to continue driving it. They just want it now in their names only, with your name removed. So that essentially means that person now has to qualify for the refinance on their own. OK, and there's a lot of companies that do a refinance. Your bank, your credit union, places online. You can go to autorefi.capitalone.com. You can go to autopay.com, clearlane.com. You can go to lendingclub.com. There's so many places that have refinance opportunities. This is just the beginning. OK, but those are the steps if you co-sign for an auto loan. The same would be a personal loan. Obviously, you can't trade in a personal loan, but you can refinance a personal loan. Just because you got a personal loan from a certain bank does not mean that you cannot get another loan from another bank to pay that loan off. OK, but again, this is not for you. This would be for the person that you co-signed for. Now, unless you want to take over that personal loan, or the previous example, unless you want to take over that auto loan, then obviously that's where that conversation is going to come in at. Sometimes people want to remove themselves as co-signers, not because it's a bad thing. Not saying that co-signing is, because obviously there's pros and cons to that, but the thing is that not every time that a person co-signs for someone, it ends up being a bad situation. It could be for your child and or your friend or whatever the relationship is, but it could be great payment history. It could have actually helped your score, and you just want to just remove that, to just remove that debt, because that does play a role into your debt to income. Okay, so that's going to play a role there. All right. Then of course, if you are on a mortgage with someone, then of course it's going to be the exact same process. You can either sell the property, okay, and then you guys can decide how you want to deal with that, that check situation or whatever, because people always act funny when there's money involved. But you can either sell the property or you can refinance the property. Again, the person that you co-sign for will have to qualify for the mortgage by themselves. So again, it goes back into that relationship. How, what does their scores look like? What does their income look like? Do they qualify for a refinance? Do they qualify if they wanted to do something else, outside of actually, paying every single month for that item or that property or whatever it may be? Okay, then you can also obviously refinance that property as well too. Okay, and of course you can't trade in a house. However, that process would be selling and then buying the next property. But again, they would have to qualify to buy the next property. Just because, now here's another thing too. Just because a person, let's say for example, you co-sign for them, and let's say for example you co-sign for a higher ticket item. So let's say for example you co-sign for them a $30,000 car, $35,000 car, or a certain type of house, 300,000, 500,000, whatever that number is. Now, they may not qualify for that $30,000 car or that $500,000 house by themselves. However, they may qualify for a lot less home, a lot less car, but at least it's in their name. And if you can at least, talk them into selling or refinancing or trading in or whatever the options are, it's more so trying to maximize what their current situation is now. Because back in the day, they needed you. But now that credit should be better. Those on-time payments should be helping them. Obviously, if it's the other way around and there's been late payments and slow payments and things of that sort, they may not qualify, but can you have a late payment on something and then still be able to refinance? Absolutely. Because you can have a late payment with something completely irrelevant to whatever loan or whatever you co-sign for that person for. But at the same time, it's really going to be based on that person's criteria. Like I mentioned, their credit score, their income. They have to qualify on their own in order for this to be successful, unless they plan on selling it just straight out. Okay, if that's possible. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. Because again, a lot of times people just they think, oh, I co-sign, that's the only way into this. Like, no, like you don't have to wait for them to pay that item off. I mean, imagine waiting 30 years for them to pay off a property. That doesn't make any sense. Or the same thing with like an apartment or anything like that. Everyone that needs a cosigner is not that same person every single time, years later, 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later. And it's time to have that conversation and say, hey, listen, I want to remove myself. This is affecting my debt to income. This is affecting my credit score. All these things play a role. All right. So if you like this video, like it. If you want to share it, share it. And as always, be sure to subscribe as we have nothing but great content on the way. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.